Batman is a great hero. He protects Gotham from the shadows and is known for never giving up and having a will of iron. But one thing he isn't known for is being a good father. He does have his moments, but for the most part he has continuously lied to the Bat family, purposely withheld information from them, and manipulated them all in one way or another to his own designs. And though he has adopted quite a few orphans over the years, his first orphan was Dick Grayson, and he is the one that Batman has arguably mistreated the most. From spanking him on his birthday once for each year, for no reason other than his own insanity, to having him fake his own death, telling no one but Batman that he is alive, so that his friends and family all grieve and mourn the loss of his passing, and then when he comes back it destroys part of their lives. All because Batman needs him to go undercover, and Batman doesn't really care much about people's feelings, and he's not really that fussed about how they're going to feel about this betrayal. Hence why everyone in the Bat family has such a, shall we say, prickly relationship with him. So needless to say, he's not going to win any Father of the Year awards. In the comic book World's Finest, issue 195, Batman and Superman infiltrate the Mafia. Superman's undercover character has to kill Bruce Wayne in order to prove his loyalty to this Mafia, so the two fake his death, and then Superman hides the Mafia's boss at his Fortress of Solitude, and then Batman poses as the head of the Mafia so they can bring it down from the inside. Unfortunately, when they were faking his death, Bruce Wayne hit his head pretty hard, and he goes a bit insane, and he believes that he actually is the head of the Mafia. So he reveals Superman's identity and then uses kryptonite to try and kill him. But Superman is able to convince him that he thinks he's in the Mafia too, and that he is loyal to him. So Batman decides to keep Superman around because he's a great weapon. But Batman also decides that they need to kill Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, and Batman's sidekick Robin, Dick Grayson. So they lure Jimmy and Robin to a junkyard and force them at gunpoint to dig their own graves. And just before Batman kills them, Robin pleads for his life, and his heartfelt speech is able to bring back Batman's memory, and so he doesn't end up killing the two. But still, having your adopted father point a gun at you and force you to dig your own grave just before he's about to shoot you and bury you in said grave, well, that's going to scar anyone for life. And the weirdest part of this story is the fact that Superman just seems to go along with it. He didn't stop Batman from shooting Robin, and if it hadn't been for Robin's heartfelt speech at the last minute, he would have been shot, while Superman just stood there and watched. Now this would be fine if Superman and Robin had planned this speech, but it doesn't come across like that at all. In fact, it comes across that Superman was literally just waiting for them to get shot, and really it was just good fortune that Robin gave this speech when he did. Frank Miller's All-Star Batman is something special, in its own way. It's so bizarre and weird that it comes across as a parody of Batman, though apparently it's meant to be taken seriously. It has Black Canary watch Batman beat up some bad guys and then set them on fire, which turns her on so much that they end up having sex right then and there by the smouldering corpses of his victims. And the weird part is that is far from the strangest moment in the comic's short run. But one of the oddest and one of the worst things about it is the way that Batman treats Dick Grayson. Batman abducts Grayson and tells him that he is now drafted into a war. And much like when the government drafts you into a war, you don't have a choice in it. And he takes him back to the Batcave, locks him inside, and tells him that he has to survive there with no food or water, just what he can find in the Batcave, as food will present itself. So basically, he's meant to eat rats to survive, just as Batman once did. Batman even loses it at Alfred just because he gives the poor kid a hamburger and puts a blanket over him, when really Batman should be grateful that Alfred doesn't call child services on him, because he's not even giving the kid a bed, and it's not as though he doesn't have a mansion filled with beds upstairs. Now this isn't the only version of Dick Grayson's character where he's been kidnapped by Batman, but the way Batman treats him in this is definitely the worst he's ever had while being kidnapped by him. In The Dark Knight Strikes Again, we discover that Dick Grayson was fired by Batman years ago for not being good enough. And this, combined with the training Batman put him through, which as we just discussed was pretty rough, and the death of his family, this all sent Dick Grayson somewhat insane. And so after he left Batman, he undergoes radical gene therapy and emerges with superpowers in the form of a healing factor that is so good that even after Batman chops off his head, he is fine, as Dick Grayson just grabs the head and reattaches it to his body. Now that doesn't really make much sense, but then not much of this comic actually made any sense. And so Batman's only way of killing him, as he has to at this point, as Dick Grayson is trying to kill him, is to open the trapdoor beneath the Batcave and drop him into a boiling lake of lava. Though it does have to be said that this is Frank Miller's version of Batman, who was always pretty murder happy anyway, and the main continuity version of Batman would never do something like this. Or at least I hope he wouldn't. And in the VR Arkham video game, Batman is trying to solve the murder of Dick Grayson.
Beaten to death. Why wasn't I here? Why didn't I stop it?
Only to discover that he is the murderer himself. It's actually quite a confusing game, and you only really know what's going on if you've played the Batman Arkham Knight game beforehand, and even then it's not perfectly clear. But basically, in the Arkham Knight video game, Batman is infected with a virus that is turning him into the Joker.
Untreated, the blood's gestated too long. It's altering them. They're becoming... Joker. My God.
It doesn't really make much sense, to be honest, but it's a great game, so just go with it. But anyway, the whole Arkham VR game playthrough turns out to be a nightmare of what he's going to do when the Joker virus has taken him over fully and turned him completely into the Joker. It's basically his nightmare, his fear of what is going to happen, because the Joker in Batman's body, given all his weapons and his vast wealth that he has, is quite terrifying, because he could quite literally end the world.
Look at me! I'm amazing! And this body! I can't believe how strong it is!
But since this is just a nightmare scenario, technically he doesn't kill Dick Grayson because it is a dream. But at the same time, the game doesn't really make this very clear. Its story is quite oddly finished. It kind of feels like it ends about 10 minutes too early, and it has left many people thinking that Batman has actually killed his adopted son for real. But in most likelihood, he didn't actually kill him. And although using the "it was all just a dream" ending is very cliched, if you haven't played or seen the VR game, then you should definitely check it out, though make sure you've watched or played the Batman Arkham Knight game beforehand, otherwise you'll have no idea what's going on.
The dynamic duo, together at last.
And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.